in time in their work. Like institutions, for instance, who would be the right people at an institution? So that might be worth thinking about. Is it the research office? And I don't know how institutions are organized. You guys know this better than I. If we hit librarians, does that do it? Do we need to hit another group at an institution to make them aware? And that can be a different conversation on communication channels.
So what I'm hearing and following what Raleigh said and Shelley, what you were saying is talking about what we've done, and that's what Nancy's outlined very much. I think it's very good about summarizing the parts that we would need to write up about that. But trying to figure out what are the recommendations we would have for extending this work. And so a couple could be, we already talked about gap analysis, we've talked about that for a while. What's missing that nobody's written resources or training to address. But then how do you help the folks who are going to help if we're going to extend more requirements to Earth and space science researchers? How are they going to be supported in meeting these requirements through training of some sort? So who's going to do that? So one group is, within the library, services have been developed to do that kind of thing. So what do they need to know about Earth and space sciences, data management that is unique to it, that's not general to other disciplines? So that's one thing. But there could be other folks who touch the research process. It's one thing that's fun with data. Even maybe data centers are different, but in an academic institution, nobody owns research data. It's touched by so many different groups that more often than not do not talk to each other as much as they should. So libraries have a role to play, and folks in my position, but there are a numerous number of people who touch data in one form or another. But am I also reading this right, as Raleigh was suggesting, trying to come up with, here are the recommendations we would have for extending this work, and then trying to figure out which paths are most fruitful in the short term?
Yes, that's a really good way of saying it. So the inventory that you have, where are the gaps? So bottom line, when we highlight for a researcher they need training in X, is it in the clearinghouse? Do we have something? Is it missing? Now, best effort for what we understand right now, right? What you don't know, you're never going to know, right? So,
right.
Yeah, so best effort, and ongoing and iterative, and we think of things as we go along, but best effort now. So that's kind of one general category I would look at. And then I would take maybe a subset of that and say, okay, for this new policy coming, and we want to actually push things in front of folks in a meaningful way, do we have everything we need to cover specific areas? Which is likely a subset of all things FAIR. So, having to do with good data management practices, having to do with understanding data citations, et cetera. And do that mapping. Okay, what do we have? And then what would be missing here? And then what would be the best way to get that generated?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there would be a bit of an urgency there.
In the latter, partly because of the session at the summer, and also implementation of the implementation phase of the Enabling FAIR project. That's the reason. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So hopefully things will be maturing fast enough to hit all of these timelines. And they're squishy right now because this very conversation we're having, like what materials are missing and how are we going to fill them? We kind of need to know that to firm things up.
Right.
So yes.
I don't think that'll be too hard to do. I mean, we definitely have the resources that we generated through the crowdsourcing events. We also have other things in the clearinghouse that other people haven't found, and we can do an analysis of that, of what's in there, as well as this, it's kind of a parallel effort or another thread of documenting what is at the moment, and also what isn't at the moment. So I think that should be fairly easy to do. But yeah, the recommendations and extensions. I had one question in terms of the if the recommendations include not only what could or should be done and what's the most efficacious way or useful way of doing that, are you thinking that in the context of what else is going on around the world in this area? So, other places, other organizations with whom and with which we are involved are also doing this kind of work of creating educational resources. So you think of ANDS, you think of, the UK CODATA people, all kinds of groups are doing that, some of which we know about and some of which we don't, as you say. Should we be very practical about this is a group we should continue, we definitely want to make contact with, this is an area that they're working on, and it would be really useful to connect with them on this aspect, getting into the details that way, or what? I mean, this would have to be based on our current knowledge, so it'd be sort of a snapshot. But is that something that would be part of it as well?
So there's that. Thanks for queuing it up like that. One of the bottom lines here is we really want to highlight the value of this clearinghouse. All right, It is free. It's free to people. They can get to everything in here for free. That's incredibly important. An open source materials. So I am fully aware that the Carpentries is going to do a curriculum on fair carpentries, but that's not free. So we are supporting at the moment. It's sort of an indirect support, but I am going to make sure that they have all the topics and see if we can actually get them to come to fall meeting. But you're only going to get access to so many people in order to participate. This clearinghouse can give access to, unlimited number of people. That's its value. So I think when we are trying to promote where do you go get training, I think the first place is the free resource that has been vetted, and we know that it meets the needs of fair compliance within this context. I think that is always going to be number one. Are there other sources? Yes, of course there are. Fantastic. Do what you got to do. There's so many researchers. We need help coverage, but I think the materials in your clearinghouse. Now, if someone is willing to help build something that can be added to the clearinghouse that's not on this phone call, that's in Australia or with the Go Fair, Go Train project, that's fine as well. But I don't know their timelines. I mean, we can certainly, there's an email I haven't responded to from Eric Schultes along these lines. And one of the reasons I haven't responded is I'm not exactly sure what I would say to him. Yes, I'm interested. Yes, I want him to build materials. Yes, I want him to make them available. But maybe that's actually my ask, that he make them available to this clearinghouse as soon as they're built. Now that I'm saying it all out loud, that probably is my ask. How does that sound?
Well, I think that makes sense, but one thing, not everything in the clearinghouse is free. I mean, you can certainly get information about it free, but there's one resource in there, and there could be others where people actually have to pay a fee. But that's sort of, in some ways, it's beside the point. The point is that, it is a clearinghouse. It's a place where people all come together, and the information about these things is free.
Good to know there's one that's not free. I will change my rhetoric slightly.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that we're not open to it. It's just that, most of what people are creating right these days that we're in the communities we know about and have contact with because of, the context we are all working in, it's open, and that's the design of it. But there may be others as well, either other special associations, professional associations, that need to make some money too. I mean, so we've never been necessarily closed on that, but definitely the point is that the information about them is free. But I guess in the other context though of continuing to expand not only what the clearinghouse is we're trying to do with the clearinghouse, but also trying to, further the whole approach of enabling fair and better research data management and that sort of thing, it would also be helpful, I think, to reach out, to appear to reach out, and to acknowledge what others are doing, because as an incentive to to work together.
Nancy, I'm sending you and Aaron this email because I think he's actually, I went to find it while you were talking, and I think he's actually asking to collaborate. And you can just help guide me on what this answer is.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's two groups. That's Carpentries and the Go Fair, Go Train guys.
Mm-hmm.
The Netherlands, the folks in the Netherlands. So Germany and the Netherlands.
Yep. So what do others think about what Shelley was suggesting as an approach in terms of the extension discussion?
Anne was working on materials. Can you remind me what Australia is doing?
Oh, they have their oh God, I forgot their name of their unit, but Keith Russell and a number of people that are part of Leslie's group are creating all kinds of educational resources, including wonderful web series, and they're also actually gathering content as we are. As we did during the crowdsourcing events, and are going to be sharing that with us, hopefully, and hopefully there'll be ways of doing that from more of a machine readable point of view rather than individual entry, kind of duplication of data in that way. But that kind of collaboration, I think is really valuable for the whole concept of making this all happen.
I think you are correct. I'm noticing that Adrienne Burton from ANS is on this email I just shared with you. There's no reason. There's no reason you guys can't see this. Let me see if I can get it to everybody.
I think one thing that comes to mind when we're talking about this is that we do have a focus on Earth and Space Sciences, where some of these other groups, ANS probably, and other ones who have developed inventories of data management training resources don't necessarily have domains in mind.
True.
And I think that that's an important distinction. I mean, there are, we've had discussions in Library Land the last several weeks actually about that there are many inventories of data management resources in different places. The Clearinghouse is one of them, but there are several. And so one way that this is distinguished and that the project is distinguished is that it's having more of a focus on discipline. So I think that's important to keep in mind. I mean, there are plenty of resources and plenty, I'm sure, in the Clearinghouse as well that are more general, not discipline specific or not geared towards disciplines, but there are some. And and thinking about what training is necessary specifically for Earth and Space Science researchers, where possible, I think it's an important thing to stick on. Otherwise, we're much more like other training efforts.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the feedback we've been getting, from day one is this is all groovy, but what about me? What's in it for me? Kind of, based on the data that I'm working with or the data formats I'm working with, the particular questions I have related to, the kind of data I'm gathering and what I'm having to do with data. So we've been trying to find that kind of thing as much as possible. We've definitely gotten more of that through the crowdsourcing, I think, than we had found ourselves. And it's also something that Keith Russell mentioned would be really valuable too for them. They're really looking for domain specific as well, resources, that really talk about that. And I think probably, even into the details of different educational resources about different tools that you can use for provenance of your kind of data, that kind of thing. So that another reason to both continue to work with people, but as you say, John, highlight that's what we're trying to do within the Earth and Space Sciences at this point. So.
Yeah, John's point is incredibly important, because if we don't have the Earth and Space Science examples, our researchers look at training and go, "Oh, that's not for me. That's not my people."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think Is there anyone I missed? I think I just shared this with everybody, the email with everybody, hopefully.
Hey, Nancy, can I jump in here?
Sure.
It's there. I think, I mean, John, actually, it's a really interesting point, because one of the things that we've heard we've heard the counter of that, it's not really an asset to be specific to Earth and space science, and we've been talking about being more generalizable. So I think, what I heard you say is that it is an asset, that there's something unique about having Earth and space science specific data management training in the clearinghouse that's a positive, instead of it always sort of being, well, like, but you're not broad enough. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting too. You really can talk about this both ways, honestly. I mean, there's so much data management training that is relevant to all disciplines. You're dealing with digital information. You're dealing with it in file systems. How you organize that and one discipline to another, at some level, it actually doesn't matter what discipline you're in. Convincing the researchers that this is true can be incredibly challenging. So you even just say, like, I did my research in atmospheric modeling, and I could talk to an ocean modeling person. They'd be like, oh, well, what you do doesn't necessarily apply to what I'm doing, because I'm doing ocean modeling. Like, it's pretty much the same thing, almost exactly, actually, in so many ways. But the researchers don't necessarily see it that way. So having general data management training resources is really useful and important. But I think for researchers working in domains and with their minds focusing on the domain knowledge so much and how it interrelates with the data, having some resources that are geared towards more what they say, oh, that applies to me, is a benefit to reaching them. Mm-hmm. But I agree with that too, Aaron. I mean, I think it's true both ways. There's benefits both ways.
So Leslie, did you want to say something? I know you've tried to jump in a couple times. Do you have something? I was going to respond, but go ahead if you do.
I don't think I tried to jump in a few times, good. But I agree with what John said. Where I agree wholeheartedly with what John just said.
Okay.
This is Raleigh. I just wanted to comment one thing. I actually think it's worthwhile to think a little bit about what are the elements of data training that are universalizable and what are the elements that are domain specific. Mm-hmm. Because there are certain things that say, an atmospheric modeler really needs to understand netcdf files, and if they're writing a proposal and they don't prepare their data as netcdfs, then it's going to be rejected. But other elements that really don't require being an atmospheric scientist to understand. So knowing that difference can be really useful to say, okay, what resources can be for everyone, and what are the resources? What are the elements that really do need to be specific? Mm-hmm.
I wonder if one way we can approach this within what we're doing within this report is to do kind of an analysis, even a cursory analysis of the subject disciplines that we found, the resources that have been kind of specific to certain certain domains. So for instance, if we've gotten things that are Earth Chem, we've gotten a lot of things from IEDA, which is Earth Chem data. We've gotten things from EDI, the environmental kind of data. Even if we just did kind of a subject or subject domain or subject discipline analysis, that would tell us something. And then, to the extent to which it is specific to, they are specific to enable us to do this kind of analysis that you're talking about between what's generic and what would be more specific might come out of that, or we might find that we don't know the answers right now, and that's part of the gap.
It's not just about identifying whether the resources themselves are specific or general, but it's about identifying what needs to be specific and what is better general, like in terms of just the framework for training people, mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
So how would we do that? I mean, we would be using it because that's kind of outside what we've been doing, but the others have definitely thought about that and looked at it, I think. I mean, I don't know about different domains. We may have to look and see what we can find there.
I don't know if that's something we need to do systematically. I think it's just a framework to have in the back of our mind, because it does seem like there's this tension between wanting to make sure we're serving Earth and space sciences and making sure also that we're general. So I just think, I don't think it necessarily needs to be a specific task that we perform, but I do think it's worthwhile keeping in the back of our minds this idea of like what is general and what is specific.
Right.
One of the examples of that, this might help a little bit and kind of not bite off too much. ESIP's role in defining good practices for data citation was incredibly valuable. So the ESIP Fed page is one that's used by at least AGU journals, if not others, because there are specific examples there for Earth and space science. And it builds upon the data citation guidelines from Force 11, which use bio examples, which are very confusing because they look very different. So one of the things we're doing at Summer ESIP is generating those examples for software citation. So it looks and feels like Earth and space science models and different sort of software services examples, so that we can have an ESIP Fed page to let journals point to the materials that will generate to guide librarians and data managers will make sure they can find the software citation examples for Earth and space science. So it's not like you need a different source. You need a different, like, okay, well, how does that apply to me? Like, where are my examples? So this is kind of, for at least those two pieces, the generic guidelines that were given, they chose bio because those are the folks that wrote that. And so we're gonna add on, okay, so yes, that works, but we have to show it to you like this because that's how our people talk.
I totally agree with this. I was just actually bringing up like cases from Data One. Data One's modules use environmental science cases. USGS, I'm looking at USGS's data management stuff, and it's talking about a wildlife biologist and an in-house GIS expert. That's the part that's the linker that is important. So yeah, so if you have data citations and you're trying to get a physicist to do data citations and you show them a bunch of citations of data from digital humanities, they'll be like, it's not relevant. But you show them physics examples, like, oh, I see. Even though like the citations of what's included in them isn't different very much at all. It's just having cases that apply to you. So that's I totally agree with Shelley. That's the part we can pull out, that hey, this data management resource has cases from these disciplines. Can be something maybe to catalog.
So for I'll just keep going because there's just so much to share. So I talked to the Force 11 software folks. So so case in point, software citation, what Force 11 put together is a percentage of what's needed. So they know that. They know they're giving guidance on something, but it's the first round, that there's iterations to come. So they have this implementation group trying to deal with the other things, like how do you cite a Python notebook? How do you, what does that work? So I asked them for help, and of course they're willing, and they're very excited about helping. And the folks that are Earth and Space Science that are on that group are like, oh, we have examples, fantastic. So that's one group heading in one direction to help with Earth and space science. But I think more importantly, the effort that's about to happen at Summer ESIP is even more valuable. Jessica has it designed to be a two sessions. The first one is more of a outbrief on what's happened so far with software and services citation, but also then a gathering of use cases for, okay, what examples do we actually need to benefit our community? What do we need to cover? Second session is a working session to actually build them. So by the time we're finished, we should have all or most of the content necessary for a good first draft, something that we could actually use for training and pointing to. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be improved, but it'll be good enough.
That sounds good. Well, I wondered, pulling back a little bit, I'm at the risk of being very results driven. We do need to get this report written. What do you think the best way to do this recommendations would be. Is that something we should just kind of set up a little brainstorming document that on which we can throw our ideas as we are writing the different sections, and also, of course, with the notes from what we've got here with the discussion, then if people find the examples, for instance, that we were talking about in different domains on different topics that are fair, related to fair, however that's defined, then we could see which of those we could use, or how many of them we can use in the report itself for the next steps and the recommendations. Is that a way to kind of figure out which ones we want to do? And I think we need to find the specifics, come up with some specifics, and how to apply them to what we're doing. So I'm trying to think. Go ahead.
I can take an action to give you, let me take an action to give you a document. I have it in slides at the moment, which is very hard for people to comment on. So I'll put it into a Google Doc. This is the recommended and required and recommended elements for the project. That you can comment on them as well. Where they are not in stone yet. And then that'll give you an idea of what we would need guidance on.
Okay.
So what the alignment would be. And then because you guys probably have some of the most thorough understanding of the FAIR, please also comment on what we are teasing out for required versus recommended. My first question, is it too lightweight? Did we not carve out enough? You'll just have to tell me what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And that would, so there should probably be some middle conversation here, but let me jump to the end. I really believe that when we have an understanding of what we're going to say in the project and how it connects to the content in the clearinghouse, right? So that's a pretty big leap, really.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that this tag should write a paper on that. I think this, if you could write something that we could give to folks, and I mean that in sense of this is an opportunity to highlight this good work, and then it can live on, and we can continue to update in other venues. But I want you to have some credit for this incredible work you're doing. If you have this guide, these are the materials, this is where it came from, this is how we put it together, this, you researcher, this is how you're going to find things, here's a specific link, here's a specific link. I see that as something very valuable to the community that you all have built.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put it in context of a couple different ways. You can include the goals of the project, but you can also include the goals of FAIR in general. You can have something written that is wider, a broader topic, and that's something you can talk about.
Right. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if the recommendation is to do that, as part of this report, the recommendation is to write a paper for publication on these kinds of topics, then that's something we can figure out how to do next. So yeah, that makes sense. I think it's a good idea. I think there's more than the possibilities for what can happen with this are more than are possible to put in this report at this point.
Yes, it's huge. What you all have done is humongous.
Yeah.
This is really incredibly valuable and will live on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to promote it. Like, for instance, it's made very clear to me that trying to get citations for the work done for this project is valuable to the folks who have contributed. So that's why I would recommend that we consider how to take this content and make it citable, so that we can recognize the good work of this project.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're thinking through this report, and we're thinking through the gaps and figuring out how to benefit, our fellow scientists, I would very heavily support and would be an advocate for finding a place. It doesn't even have to be an AGU publication. I would also advocate for other places as well. But definitely we could figure out how to there's opportunity there.
Right. Yeah. Well, so
yeah.
I was just wanting to get a sense from other folks about how they thought we should proceed in both capturing these ideas and then getting them written up, given our immediate task of writing this report up.
So I would suggest that we still do have some things we want to write up that are already pretty well defined in terms of the crowdsourcing events.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like the scope could be quite broad for our recommendations. So I would suggest that we make as an immediate goal, like in the next week or two, to write up these deliverable elements, with respect to the crowdsourcing events, and we divvy that writing up among us.
Yep.
And then we reconvene in a week or two once we have those elements together, and then we can kind of take notes as we go in the next couple of weeks of like what we want to be the big picture stuff.
Mm-hmm. But
maybe put off the writing of that for now until we have this more immediate, tangible stuff written down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how other people feel about that approach.
Makes good sense to me. I think once we start writing, it'll kind of start flowing a little bit.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, I kind of feel like the larger message is talking about how we can, getting information and resources available for people to actually do this, to do better data management, to make their data fair. And so we're not writing an education development kind of article. It's more about here are the resources available and here's how we try to expand that. And then finding the appropriate venue for such a thing. But I would agree. The easiest place to start in writing any paper is what'd you do?
Right. And why? Why the heck were you doing that? Yeah. Yeah.
So we can start there and get a little momentum. I think that's a good idea. What does everyone else think?
I guess silence means assent in this case, right?
When I taught an undergrad course for a general course for meteorology, that's what I said all the time. Silence means agreement.
You can do a countdown, 10, 9, 8, as if you're taking off in a race or something. Yeah. Well, okay. I think we should. I think that's a good start. I think we should do that, and then get back together too. That makes sense. I mean, it would also enable Sophie to come in too and help out. And I know she's interested in doing that. So, anybody else? Eric, which you haven't said much. I know you. Do you have anything to add? I know you also wanted to talk about maybe add to the crowdsourcing discussion.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's the part that I feel like I can contribute most effectively to when we start writing about that part. So please do keep me in that loop.
Okay. Just put your name down by you and John. Well, maybe you do an overview of of crowdsourcing events and kind of the way we approached it. That's another way to do this as well, because we kind of approached it similar ways, or approached the two events in similar ways.
I was going to say, I mean, Eric, if you'd like to talk about that, and you were involved in working on those events, I did say, I think in an email about maybe I could help with some with the introduction part, because I was involved with the working group at the inception. So if you want to look at doing that part and getting a first crack at that, I'll just take myself away from it and do something different.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I will remove myself. I'm removing myself right now.
Yeah. So I mean, this outline can also be rewritten, or comments. Maybe we should do comments at this point. If it looks like we should change the way we're approaching it, so we have more of a kind of an overall discussion about crowdsourcing events. That's not really pulled out per se in this, but go ahead and change that, Eric, if you want to. So Leslie asks about where the data are that for writing this up. It is in the data management training folder, which I think everybody has access to. But let me. I'm sorry, enabling FAIR. Let me find that. It's on Google Drive and put it in the chat. But I can also include it at the bottom of this sheet too, if this is something we'll be using. Does it sound like we should kind of keep this outline to be the outline, and then start linking other pages to it below this? So keep working on this particular venue using Google Docs to write the paper. That makes sense to people?
That makes sense to me, Nancy.
Oh, Rowena. Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to have you on. I didn't see that. Good. Did somebody else say something? Sorry.
Nope, just agreement that Google Docs is a good way.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So, I can put that. Do you want to look at that right now, Leslie? Do you want me to show you where put in the, so you can look at it and see if there are certain parts of it you want to look at and certain parts not, in terms of the results?
Did you put the link into the chat? I'm sorry.
No, not yet, but I can do that right now. I think that's all right. Well, at least what I can put in here is, this is the link to the aggregated results. Make sure you can see that. And it's the view only part though. It's okay. All of them put together in one. If you want to see the results that are broken out by question and approach we took, which maybe we do want to do, I'll find that one and put that in. And then the results from the crowdsourcing are in a different spreadsheet, which I have to find. So I can, oops, that's not it. Let's see. Anyone else has it too? Nope. Yeah, I may have to.
Did you say that there's a folder link that might be
yeah.
best?
Yes. Okay. So let me just do that. I think everybody has.
For these bullets, I think there's some data that's in like the sign up. If it was a Google form, the sign up would have some of this information, and then these spreadsheets would have some information. So I know there are many different ways that data
right,
was collected.
Right. So here is the link to the folder. Check to make sure you can get in. So we've got summary of meetings, finding resources, tag C, final report outline. I did. So I've I'll have to move these things over because I talk about better data management. Geez, I could put these.
I did just request access to the folder.
Okay. I thought everybody had it, but. La, 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 la. Let's see, now how do I do that? Sharing, is that one? Nope. Nope. Well, I'll have to figure out how to do the share. Oh, there. No, that's
no problem. That can be later.
There it is. Yeah. So I don't know if others. I'll just make sure everybody has it. Here's you right now, Leslie, and I'll make sure everybody else has it. So okay. So let me do that, making sure that all of the links to the right places are here. Or actually, what I'll do is pull everything into this particular folder, the Tag C Enabling Fair Data folder, so that they're all pulled together in one place, and then you don't have to jump around either. So I can do that by after our call today, and then let's see. So Raleigh, you were going to talk about the first part, right?
Yes, the first crowdsourcing event.
Yeah. Okay, including the analysis as well, or wasn't sure with what you?
I'm going to need to bring myself back up to speed. I can definitely cover the event and the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Let me see how I go on those first two, and then
Okay.
I'll get back to you about the analysis.
Okay, that sounds good. I think I'll take the second one then, the second event in the mapping to FAIR principles, because that's tied in fairly closely to the clearinghouse, and we've been working on that more with Abby, the student intern. So I can take that component at this point. And then let's see. So there,
I said that I could take a look at the analysis for the first one.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay. Okay, so go ahead and put your name in those areas. I won't do that right now, so we don't get it wrong. And then Eric and so John, do you want to do the overall approach, kind of the start out, the organization, what the working group purpose was, the target audiences, and that whole thing? Do you want to start with that?
At least what we talked about at the beginning and what we've kind of been talking about. Of course, some of that might change, but sure. At least what we discussed when we got started.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, one of the things that's in this, I'll make sure is in this folder are I think they're already there, the notes from the previous meetings. So that tells you too what we talked about and what we did. So that's there. But giving that original, that sort of overall approach would be great. And then I'm not sure what Sophie will want to do or what time she has. I'll probably talk to her later and see. So yeah, we've all got something then. And I guess we'll just maybe I'll make another page. Well, actually, how should we do this? So the recommendations of the next steps. I like the idea of the brainstorming and just making comments maybe below where this is in the outline right now, and then if you add something, it'll be clear who adds what, I think, because that's what that we can do with the docs. And then we can schedule another meeting maybe in a couple weeks. Should we give ourselves a couple weeks to do this first part, meet in 2 or so, and then, maybe we could shoot for the end of the month to get the whole thing done. Does that sound reasonable, given people's schedule?
Yes, you should just give us deadlines.
Okay. All right. So yeah, let's give ourselves, where is my calendar? I have to get everything out of the way. Today is the 4th. So yeah, maybe if we can have everything done for the first one by the 18th of May, we'll try to meet, maybe I'm out on vacation during part of that time, but some of it I can, actually, maybe what we could do is plan to have things ready by the 17th, and I can try to set up a meeting on the 18th, a call, and then the goal would be to have the whole thing written by June 1st, that 2 weeks after that. How does that sound?
That makes sense. I like that.
Okay. So, okay, 17th due, 18th meeting, June 1st finished. Cool. Okay, I'll put this kind of thing in in here in this outline, and then there'll probably be another. I did record part of this meeting, so we can go back to that if we need to, and if Sophie wants to listen to it, she can, or other people. So. Okay, that sounds good. And I guess if there are any questions or anything that comes up, we can just do that via email, right? Or put comments in here, keep this as a working document, and add pages below it in our sections. Sound good?
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to honor our an hour thing. We're right close to the 2 hour thing here. So anything,
especially on Friday.
Yeah, especially on Friday when you guys are ready to go. So okay, that sounds good. Well then, thanks for the time. I think this is great. It's nice to have a good sense of where we're going with it, and a deadline too. So cool.
Great. Everyone have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank
Nancy.
you.
Great. Thanks, you too.
Thanks, Shelley. Oh, Rowena, if you want
Thanks,
to write
Nancy.
something up, let me know.
Yeah, I was thinking since I'm not that familiar, that I would maybe be a good over,
Yeah.
kind of editor, suggester,
Sure.
questioner.
That'd be great.
I'm excellent at asking questions, but also if you have something specific in terms of like new directions or
Yeah.
anything, just let me know because I'd be happy to take a crack at that too.
Yeah. At what point did you come into the conversation?
I was about 15 minutes in.
Okay, so you heard the kinds of things that Shelley was talking about.
Yeah, which is
okay, great.
yeah, and so that actually I started making a few notes on like ideas for recommendations, but they're definitely they belong on a brainstorming sheet where they can be vetted by others. They may or may not be of any value at all. But
yeah, but no, that would be So if you want to start just keeping track of that, and then it would be great to have an overall editor looking at it. I suspect that's what Sophie may be doing as well. But yeah, that would be great because it's if you get we're each going to be kind of embedded in our own little area, and it'll be nice to have somebody thinking across them. So that'd be great. Sounds good.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.